What up, guys? Welcome to the Jiu Jitsu Podcast today. Today we have a guest, Amanda Alequin, goes by the moniker, the nickname Tubby, Tubby BJJ, although she is like a 115 to 125 pound competitor. So we'll get into why she got the name Tubby. But she is getting ready for a big match coming up at the 1FC against Tammi Musumeci. I always feel like I'm butchering that last name there.
It's tough to say. You got to practice. That's a practicer.
Yeah,
Musumeci.
Like that was like when Khabib first came out. Like they're gonna, something Medov, right? Like it was like that's
Francis
how
Ngannou. They couldn't say his name.
Ngannou would never got me so bad. It was like all the guys that were coming out of that Eastern Bloc, like Dagestani. Those were the names that got me. I was like, I remember seeing Khabib for the first time, and I was like, did you see that guy? The guy, I don't know what his last name, but Khabib, right?
Yeah.
But again, she's on the podcast. Super fun conversation with her. We'll get into everything from her conversation into her farm life and her chickens, even though she's living, I guess, near West Palm Beach. So it's a fun conversation. I had a great time with her. So hopefully you guys enjoy the podcast, get a couple ideas for your upcoming competitions or training or anything like that. I always feel like anytime I listen to people who are passionate about what they're doing, regardless of the subject, I feel like sometimes what comes away from it is maybe not sometimes a specific thing, but there's something that rubs off on me. Like when I'm listening to podcasts myself, if I hear someone talk about something, it gives me some inspiration or some idea that sparks in my head just because of the way that person is. So hopefully that does something for you guys like that. With that said, thanks to our sponsors for helping make this podcast happen. Charlotte's Web, you can check them out at charlottesweb.com. The promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off. Again, recovery is one of those things where if you do jiu-jitsu and you're training jiu-jitsu, recovery is one of those things that becomes all too important, right? Anybody that's doing jiu-jitsu, and especially as you start to get into your like mid to late 30s, you start to get really into recovery. In your 20s, you're fine. You recover no matter what. You get thrown up against a brick wall, and the next day you're brand new. But as you start to get a little bit older into your 30s and on, you just start to feel your body a lot more, and those training days take a lot more out of you. And this is one of the reasons why I do like the CBD supplement. For me, it's been really useful as far as being a part of my recovery routine. I like taking it and during the evening, basically before I go to bed, when I'm taking my shower and going through my nighttime ritual, which I think is a really good idea for everyone. Try to create some nighttime ritual that helps wind you down. So this way your body, when you begin that ritual, you're essentially telling your body, hey, we're getting ready to go to bed. That was super important for me as far as keeping my sleep like routine and keeping it healthy, I guess you'd say, and getting enough sleep, having that routine. And part of my routine is taking CBD. It's helped out with a number of different things. And so I encourage people to try it. And if you've never tried it before, go on their website. You can get one of the tinctures or one of the gummy packs and try it out for a month and see what you feel from it and make your decision based upon your own experience. Again, it's charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order. Also, thanks to Epic Roll, epicrollbjj.com. Epic Roll is a jiu-jitsu brand company that makes gis, rash guards, no-gi shorts, hoodies, fanny packs, anything and everything, t-shirts, anything and everything that you can imagine being jiu-jitsu related, they make. Again, I think probably some of their biggest sellers are their t-shirts. If you guys have never looked at them, I encourage you to check them out. They've got some fun designs. Whenever I wear one of their t-shirts in a YouTube video, I almost always get a comment. I just got one this morning. Someone was like, where can I buy that shirt? I replied back to him, epicrollbjj.com. By the way, use Jiu-Jitsu for 15% off on the order, right? But again, a lot of people like them and they're fun shirts. Like there's one that says, it says triangle choke on it, and then it gives you the definition of the choke. There's a couple other ones similar to that. So again, if you guys are looking for some jiu-jitsu gear or apparel, check them out at epicrollbjj.com. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Manscaped, for supporting the podcast. Manscaped is the premier men's grooming company. They make everything from balms, beard trimmers, body trimmers, nose trimmers, deodorants, underwear. I mean, everything under the sun that a man would possibly need to stay fresh, clean, smelling good, looking good, for whatever purpose they want to. I recently got a hold of their beard trimmer. So again, they've had they call it, what is it, the lawnmower, which originally was a ball trimmer that I just use for everything, and then they came out with the beard trimmer. The beard trimmer is really cool. I put it to use. My beard was growing pretty fuzzy the other day, and I wanted to trim it down. And it's really nice because basically it's a trimmer with a fixed guard on top, and then the actual blade moves up and down. And so if you're a guy that has a beard, then you got to keep switching your guards out, right? Which is it's fine. It's not that big of a deal, but it's super nice if you're traveling, if you have it, or if you just don't want to have to pull out all the guards. All you do is switch the dial. It'll tell you how, like, what the length is at, so you can go all the way up into like 8 or whatever and be super long, or you can bring it all the way into like, basically right to skin. So it's a really nice, convenient way if you have a beard to trim yourself. And again, if you guys want to check out any of their stuff, I've used almost everything they offer, and I like all of it. I think everything smells good. The quality of the products are super solid. I've been using one of their trimmers for, I guess it's probably getting close to 3 years now, Eugene.
Mhm.
And it's a tank. So again, good stuff. It's definitely going to be more expensive than, say, like some crappy like trimmer that you're going to get somewhere else, but the damn thing's going to work for you for a long time. And again, you can check them out at manscaped.com. The promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order, and you get free shipping, which is a good deal. Check them out. And guys, if you want to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to our website at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. Upon joining the Jiu-Jitsu Patreon, which is very inexpensive, you will get access to a ad-free version of the podcast, should you want one, should you not want to listen to these ads. But then on top of that, you'll also get access to an exclusive library of content that we've created over the last several, 5 years now. Is that what we're
It's
going
been
on?
a long, dude. How many? I don't know how long. 4 or 5 years now.
It's going. I think it's 5 years, man. I think we started back in like 2018 is when we started back on
Wow.
your grandma's table.
Grandma's table.
Actually, we started back on the massage table.
Oh man.
But
we had the worst. It was the worst idea. Let's do a one microphone podcast going YouTube live.
Yeah.
Like, this is the dumbest shit ever.
we had to be so close to each other. It was like having like dinner with each other.
It was like a nice little candlelight dinner.
Little candlelight dinner. You just got this like this thing in between us, and we're both talking into it really closely.
Oh my god! And there was like background noise. I wonder. I've never listened. I don't know. I probably need to go back and listen to that first episode.
Oh, I bet
probably a hot mess.
For those of you listening, Eugene, which is a good thing, because otherwise the podcast would not be nearly as good without him. I mean,
well, thank you.
If it was me doing the podcast, guys, the quality would be much lower. I promise you. So Eugene is a stickler for that stuff, and he really does a good job of producing the podcast. And the old ones would make you cringe, because like if something's not perfect now, Eugene will like obsess over it to make sure it's really good. If you went back to watching those old ones, bro, I bet you would just be like squirming in your seat. Like, how could I let this be on the internet?
I can't. I'm just gonna re-record it, voiceover. No, I'm kidding.
We're gonna remaster.
But yeah, dude, it's fun. It's fun. They were just Joe Rogan just did 2,000 episodes. And it was cool to like they did like this. There's this little clip of them. And like him and who'd he start with? I can't think of
Redband.
Yeah, Brian Redband. It was like this really weird, like grainy video of their first podcast. And I was like, man, how far they've come, and how incredible, like how many information they've shared. And then, like, I just hope that like we do one, like just a little bit of that, we get people like a little bit of something they can take away with each episode to kind of better their life or their jujitsu, whatever it is, however you want to take, or just a little entertainment, just you're getting through a shitty day at work or something, you got a little something to listen to, man. So if you guys enjoy the podcast, we appreciate it.
Yep. And you guys check them out at the patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu Podcast, and also take that idea away that we just talked about. This is like a pretty good principle, right? Which is, like, let's say, for instance, if you want to get good at anything, but let's say jiu-jitsu, we'll speak about jiu-jitsu. If you want to get good at jiu-jitsu, then forget about like medals, forget about belts, forget about all the achievement stuff for a little while, and focus on becoming the kind of person that doesn't skip training sessions. That's where you start, right? And like for us with the podcast, it's like, okay, like the podcast, for what we do and what it is, it's done really well. As far as performance and everything else that it's due. I mean, in jiu-jitsu space, I mean, it's killing it, right? Well, it didn't start that way, and we just started making a podcast, and we just kept doing one every week. And again, you can replace that with just about anything, and that's kind of personally my focus on anything that I try to do. I don't really worry like, where is this going or what am I going to achieve, especially early on. In the beginning, I'm just trying to become the kind of person that does this thing like every day or every other day, every week, whatever, so that to the point where accomplishing the thing that is going to be the key critical component of me accomplishing whatever it is that I want or achieving whatever I want is then becomes so routine that it's like brushing my teeth, where I don't have to think about it, right? So that's just an important idea. But again, side note, just I know this is the thing is becoming longer and longer as we go, but that's an important one to think about, guys. And last but not least, guys, if you want to sign up for my email list and get my daily email newsletter, you can do so by going to my website at chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. Upon joining, you'll get access to some exclusive ebooks that I give away, and you will become a valued member of the Chew Crew, in which you will get a daily email from me that will give you everything from philosophical ideas, jiu-jitsu ramblings and tips, books that I'm reading, and even some exclusive offers that I do not give anywhere else that are exclusive to the email group. So again, if you want to check that out, chewjitsu.net/join is the website. And with that said, guys, let's jump into this podcast with Tubby. So how's things going for you?
It's going good. It's going good right now. I'm visiting. I'm in Pennsylvania, just cross training with my brother at the moment. So it's going good.
Where does he train at?
So him and my dad run a program out in Sharpsville, Pennsylvania called Elevated Martial Arts.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like they're on the borderline of Pennsylvania and Ohio. So yes, we run a nice little program here.
So was your dad who got you into training originally?
Yeah, it was him. My dad, honestly, originally I started off boxing because we grew up in Brooklyn in New York, and my parents owned a liquor store, and our house was attached to the liquor store, and we used to live on Church Avenue, and that wasn't a really safe neighborhood.
Okay.
So we grew up boxing, and I grew up with 2 older sisters and a younger brother, and we were a really tight-knit family. We kind of like were all we had. So whenever there were any arguments or fights that broke out between us, my dad would always tell us to put on the gloves, and that's how we settled arguments. So
nice.
Yeah, I was originally into boxing, and then when I moved to Florida, my parents opened up a restaurant called Frankensubs, and right behind that restaurant, they opened up XFC. It was the first training facility, I'm assuming, in Florida, and it was like 7,000 square feet, and they were doing like a special on the first like 100 people that signed up. So he went and he signed the whole family up, and that's how he started.
Oh yeah. And so, I was looking up your name because when they sent us a message, hey, would you like to have her on the podcast? She has a match coming up for the 1FC, and your nickname was Tubby. And I looked at you on Instagram, and I'm like, well, she doesn't look very Tubby to me. And so I looked it up, and apparently at one point, I was looking at a bio I found, and I guess you were at one point like 4'11", and you were 180 pounds.
Yeah, I was 186 pounds.
So tell me about that. Like, how did you get so big, and then what sort of prompted you to lose all that weight?
So honestly, growing up, I wasn't really like heavy set. I was actually like very, very, very frail. Like I was very skinny. And man, I was doing a podcast yesterday, and they asked me the same thing. And I was like, dude, what had happened was I used to sell, my parents owning the liquor store. I used to sell chocolate and candy to pay for our trips to go to Ecuador in the summers growing up. So once I started doing that, my dad did the worst mistake of leaving the inventory in one of our top bunk beds. So it was like, it could be like the middle of the night, midnight, and I could just reach up above and just grab a Snickers bar or Twix bar. And then there was also a corner store next to our liquor store, and we were really good friends with the owners. And every time we would go over there, they would always give us candy and chips and always like, take whatever you want. And it was just a bad habit forming. And then right from there, I just started, I have a thing for sweets. I love sweets. And it's just a habit that's formed since then.
And then how did you end up losing the weight? So I ask, I'm always curious about this, because when I was a teenager, I got pretty tubby myself. Mine was for different reasons, but I remember I kind of had this point where one of my wrestling coaches told me, because we were wrestling and I was at the heavier weight class, and he said, bro, you would be a monster at 189 pounds. That was the weight class. And then I remember that thought got lodged into my head. And so the rest of the summer I was dieting and running and exercising. And the next year I went and wrestled at 189 and did really well. So for you, what caused you to lose that weight? Because that's not an easy thing to do, especially if you have these patterns that you're in these rhythms of, eating chocolates and everything else.
Yeah. So like I said, I was a junkie for sweets. And then once I started jiu-jitsu, really, there was two things that happened. Because when I first lost the weight, I lost weight from like 160 pounds to like lightweight, middleweight. And that happened because the same thing, my first instructor, Jerry Norton, I remember I was getting ready for Florida State. And I was a blue belt at the time. And, I used to compete in the teens division. And I was usually like, again, 165 pounds. And I lost the 20 pounds really was puberty, to be completely honest with you. I grew once I got to high school. I got a little bit taller. I stretched out a little bit, but I wasn't like in shape. I wasn't athletic at all. And then once I started training for the Florida States, I remember I had 2 months. And he told me, he was like, listen, I like giving people homework. He had this thing where he liked to give people homework. And he was like, Amanda, I'm going to check your weight every 2 weeks. And every 2 weeks, I want to see your weight going down. And I want you to compete in the lightweight division. And at the time, I was like 160, 155 pounds, So I was just like, oh, okay. And like I said, my parents had that restaurant. So it was called Franken Subs. So generally, they sold like hot dogs and subs and salad. So, and my mom too, she liked to make like some hot plates. So she would make rice and beans and all that. So, man, I got to say for those 2 months, like I was best friends with the salad bar. And it kind of like, again, I'm someone that I'm very competitive. I'm very, very highly competitive, especially growing up with my brother, like us always being neck and neck. So when he gave me this task, this homework, and he was like, I know you can do it. He's like, as a matter of fact, I'm challenging you because I know you can do it. And he also saw my eating habits too. And he would always be like, man, like at your age, I could live off of a 2-liter Coke and a Snickers bar and walk, 10 miles,
Right.
But, so for that Florida States, he challenged me to do that. And I ended up dropping down to lightweight. I made it to 141 with the gi on. And without the gi, I was like around 137, 136. Granted, after that, I got back up to middleweight again. So I was like around 155. So that was probably in 2012, 2011. And then fast forward, I competed middleweight and lightweight. I used to dabble between the two my whole career. Mm-hmm. And then to be completely honest with you, what made me drop down to the weight that I'm at now, which is around 115, 120, was I was cross-training with Talita Alequin. I don't know if you guys know who that is. Mm-hmm. Talita, okay. So we were training one time at my gym. This was in 2018, right? And we were lifting weights and stuff like that. And you guys know Talita. Talita's jacked, right? She's like solid. And we were lifting weights. And after lifting weights, she walks over to me and she's like, hey, Tubby, can I be honest with you? And Talita has like this good and bad habit of like just telling you what comes to her mind, whether it's like no filter.
No filter. Yeah. She's got like the blunt.
Yeah, it's a good and bad habit, I tell her. Yep. She comes up to me and she's like, listen, you have great jiu-jitsu. You're an amazing athlete. She was like, but she walks up to me and grabs like my stomach fat. And she's like, you could lose like 15, 20 pounds. She was like, someone with your athletic abilities, like it looks bad. She was like, it's like a fat guy teaching CrossFit. And I swear to you, like that, boom. Yeah. Oh, I looked at her, I looked at myself, and it was in that moment, I'm not even joking. I like quit my job because I was working at a vet clinic. I quit my job and invested into jiu-jitsu full time. So then in 2019, I was competing at around lightweight, solid lightweight, not middleweight anymore. And then COVID hit and I ended up getting COVID and I lost my smell and taste for a year.
Oh.
So that made life really dull. And then I ended up dropping from really, like I said, I'm a foodie. I love food. I love junk food. I love all that. Mm-hmm. So it was no point in me eating if I couldn't have the pleasure of indulging in it. So in March of 2020, all the way from like July of 2021, I didn't have smell or taste. And I basically ate bland and ended up dropping from lightweight to featherweight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. What was it? How did you feel at a lighter weight as opposed to like at a heavier weight? Did you find like a sweet spot? Is there something you feel is like really feels good? Like you feel very athletic, very strong. Where's that mix for you? And like, maybe if somebody's looking at losing weight and figuring out kind of where the best spot is, what are some of the things that you kind of look at to know what's the right weight for you? Maybe how you suggest somebody else get to ideal weight for themselves.
I would say is whatever you're doing in weightlifting, try not to decrease your maximum effort then. Because one thing I noticed is even though I lost weight, it sounds crazy, but I lost weight, but I feel stronger at this weight, even though I'm lighter. And it's because I never dropped down in the amount of weight that I was lifting. When I was weight training and stuff, or even with the guys that I was training with, I never, chose to train with smaller people, even though I was getting smaller. Instead, I found more success in being smaller with training with the bigger guys, or even with training with other girls my size and of my caliber. Like I just found I felt better. I felt like I could move better. I felt strong, if not stronger than them, just because I was pushing the same weight I was pushing when I was heavier, training with the same guys, and I get a lot of guys in the gym that are like, oh, I'm too big for you. And I'm just like, dude, I have Napoleon syndrome. There's no such thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, also, like when you get lighter, you're able to stay stronger, like whatever your endurance or strength level is there, you can maintain that for a longer period of time because you don't have, but I noticed all of a sudden my cardio went up. And even if my strength dropped like this much, like a little bit, I could still maintain the level of strength that I had for a longer period of time. So I actually feel stronger because in the later the match goes, I'm not tired because I haven't been, lugging around a jug of milk around on my body.
Exactly. That's what I noticed too. I felt faster. And as a result, I was able to slow down my training partners, which gave me the upper hand in training. So for sure, I'm not going to lie. I like this weight. I feel the best I've ever felt. I feel the healthiest I've ever felt. At one point too, I was a vegetarian. And even that was when like I was middleweight and stuff, like pre-COVID. And I just felt sluggish all the time. I felt starchy. Like I just felt me and beans don't have a great relationship. I love beans, but they don't love me back. So it's just like I would eat them and I would feel like crap, or nuts, like just all that starchy, carby food. I just didn't feel healthy. And I'm like, man, vegetarians, like you could be an unhealthy vegetarian, dude. Oreos are vegetarian, like French fries are vegetarian. So I'm like, I don't like this diet. And I didn't do it like just because I wanted to. I love animals, hence I work at the vet clinic and stuff. So I transitioned after COVID once I started to get my smell and taste back. That my diet was like a really big change in that too. I felt the difference once I started incorporating like fish. I started putting in fish and more like leafy greens, staying away from the starches. I found my love for sourdough bread. I don't know where that came from. I will choose sourdough oat bread over any other bread. Eggs. I used to hate eggs. At one point I did a weight cut where I did eggs for 2 weeks and I hated eggs. But now I have my own chickens and I love me a good fried, scrambled, omelet, like boiled egg, all that stuff.
How important do you think, for you being now one of the smaller grapplers, how important do you think the weight training has been and the weight lifting, to keep supplementing and keeping your body healthy? I don't know what your injuries look like, and we can kind of delve into that too. But what do you feel the impact of strength training, and also what's a typical kind of strength training regimen for you?
So for sure, I used to do a lot of CrossFit, and not saying that I got hurt with CrossFit because I used to see people get injured with CrossFit. So I was very like, oh, I'm not doing that. And then I had some coaches that would almost get like not upset, but just feel almost like they had a power trip over me. Just because, again, in jiu-jitsu, you get good cardio, but you learn how to breathe. Like, I don't know if you guys are like, you learn how to breathe in jiu-jitsu, especially when you're in a shitty position or someone's crushing you. You learn how to stay composed, breathe in so you don't freak out and open mouth breathing and stuff. So when it came to doing CrossFit and a lot of the workouts, I was killing it. I was doing it. I was keeping up with them. I wasn't a CrossFit competitor, but I was doing really damn good. So it got to the point where I had some crazy coaches that were trying to get me to do some crazy shit, almost just because like a power trip, like, oh, this isn't enough for you, wear this weight vest and do lunges up this hill over your head, like with a 65-pound bar. And I'm like, bro, I'm not dumb. Like, I'm okay. I don't need that. So I kind of shied away from like the CrossFit crazy workouts. And I started more incorporating like high interval training and circuits. And the way I like to do my workouts, I like to do a good warm up. So I like to warm up with like four to six different exercises of 3 rounds. And I like to hit different bodies. So I like to do like my upper body, my lower legs, my core, do some functional, like single leg, single arm, like little workouts to warm up. Pull-ups. Found a love for pull-ups, man. I love me some pull-ups. That's one thing I can do in a workout every single time. Seated, pull-ups. I'll do like, at one point when I became obsessed, I was doing like 80 a day with 4 different grips, 2 sets of 10. Like, found a really nice love. That's another thing I tell girls. Upper body, grip strength, pull-ups. So then I do a little warm-up, and then I like to go into power. So my power, I like to focus on heavy lifts. And I'll do either front squats, back squats, cleans, Zercher squats, hip thrusters, Bulgarian split squats with heavy weight. And for the power part, usually takes me around 30 minutes because I like to take my time. And I know it's probably a mental thing, but in that time, I like to drink creatine too. So in my head, I'm just like, yeah, feed the muscles, getting big, baby. And then I'll go ahead and do a circuit. So the way I like to if you ever watch my matches, you'll see that I'm kind of like a crackhead on the mats. Like I'm just like nonstop, like going. I like to keep the pace, high pace.
Yeah.
So I like to mimic my circuits the same way. So I always do 4 exercises, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off for a 10-minute circuit. So the only break you get in between is the 10 seconds when you're running to the next station. And the way I do it, it's maximum effort. So for those 20 seconds, I'm doing like star jumps, med ball jumps. I'm doing just something very, very burpees or, rolls with some heavy dumbbells and just doing maximum effort. And then in those 10 seconds, the way I compare it is like you get in close guard and you get those 10 seconds to rest. And then you start going for another attack. You get in a quick scramble, and then the scramble comes to a stop and you get those little 10, 5 to 10 seconds of, okay, calm down. And then you go again. So I do that 2 times. So I do 2 10-minute circuits. And then I end the workout with some functional lifts. So then I just end it with some either body weight or really low weight in like single leg deadlifts, single leg squats, single leg step ups, single leg arm workouts, kettlebells, snatches, like that. So it's like a 4 workout, probably like an hour and 20 minutes.
Are you now, so you're training full time? Is kind of your full-time gig?
Yeah, pretty much. So I also work at the clinic too, but I have a really good thing with them. So I've been working there for 8 years and my boss there trains, the 2 doctors there train.
Oh, you're in there.
Yeah, I got a couple of the girls training there too, and they've tried classes. And my boss used to manage my husband for his MMA. So they're really good with me. Like when I tell you, like my manager's awesome. Like she's just like, listen, because when I also go in there, again, I have this tendency to work like a crackhead. So it's like I'm like a workhorse. I've been working, like I told you, my parents owned their liquor store.
I was gonna say your parents owned the store. You probably internalized that from them because they were probably just grinding
since a baby, dude. Like they have pictures and videos of me like crawling, filling up shelves, like of like all the alcohols and stuff. And my dad used it as a source of punishment too. If I would get in trouble, he'd have me like kneel on the ground and hold like bottles of Absolute vodka and just sit there like.
Scarecrows.
He was very, very strict. But so I'm really highly driven when it comes to like work ethic. So when I go there, I tend to I work all positions at the clinic. So whenever they need me, it's like I'm on call basically. So I'm not really on schedule. So they just call me because they know like this is priority. And when I do go in, I'm always giving 200% of my effort, and I'm always getting at least a good week's work worth done in a day. And I try to do as much as I can when I'm there and try to be the best help possible. And I fill in any gaps wherever they need me. So my boss calls me Crackhead Bob when I'm there because he's constantly like sees me zoom, like running everywhere. But yeah, it's a good gig with them. So like they just call me whenever they need me. And if I can make it, I go in. If I can't, and then they're really good with my hours. Like, my manager's like, listen, I don't care if you come in from 10 to 3. I know you'll get a lot of shit done. Like whenever you can come in, because she knows I have morning class. She knows I have night class. She knows I lift in the middle of the day. So she's like, whatever hours you can work, I work with you and we'll make it work. So love them.
So that pace that you go at, and how old are you right now?
I'm 28.
28?
Yeah. I feel
wow. So you're still young, but like you're getting up there, like you're like in your prime. So like I kind of want to know, I'm a little older. I'm going to be 40 and Chewy's getting up there too. Like that pace, it's a high pace, Has that ever kind of like bit you in the butt? Like you ever been like gone too much, worked out too hard, or kind of like basically run yourself down and had a bad performance, or just kind of gotten your body in a place where it wasn't performing like you wanted to?
For sure. I'm very, very particular with jiu-jitsu, and I learned that over the years to listen to my body, but I have a bad tendency to overwork myself when it comes to other things, whether it's getting stuff, because I have like a mini farm at my house. I have like almost 30 chickens. I have 3 bunnies. I have 5 dogs. So that alone is like a lot of work. And then I'm OCD. So like maintaining my house, like I'm vacuuming, I'm cleaning like 10 times a day, so it's like I tend to run myself down with other things. But when it comes to jiu-jitsu, I'm like very particulate. I'm very, if I'm that day, like I feel like I'm just not feeling right. If I feel like, man, I feel like I'm getting sick, I'll do like some high paced drills. I'll refrain from rolling, and I can read the room. I can read the energy in the room. Like if I feel like someone's spazzing out that day or had too much pre-workout, I'm like, I'm staying. My boy, you can stay right over there. But so yeah, I tend to have a good meter when it comes to jiu-jitsu, but for everything else, yeah, it's bit me in the ass. There's been times where I ran myself down, gotten sick, just worn myself down, not sleeping so much, because we do teach 6 a.m. classes, and I can't just wake up at 5:30. Like I got to wake up at 4:30, 4:45, get myself ready, wake up, take my dogs out and stuff, and then get ready for my day. And then sometimes we do train at night at 7:15. Sometimes that runs till like 9. By the time I get home, I take care of my animals, then I eat something, then I shower. And by that time, it's almost like 11:30, midnight. And then I'm like, I got to catch up, my phone world and stuff like that. And I'm in bed by 2 a.m. to wake up again at 4:40. So there's been times where I'm just like, I got to calm down. I got to like prioritize sleep, rest, and that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, what about like, this transition to like being a full-time jiu-jitsu athlete? What was the thought process, and kind of what was your love for jiu-jitsu when you were, I think you said 13? What did you discover with jiu-jitsu that maybe was missing for you? And then how did that path transition to you to being like, man, I want to be a full-time athlete and I want to do this for a living and make my life jiu-jitsu?
So I started when I was 15, and what really did it for me, like I wasn't too into it. And it wasn't until I did my first competition. And at that time I was a teen. So I was going against boys. And like I said, I was a little bit heavier. I was like around 160. So my first tournament, I went up against like a 180-pound kid, and it's on YouTube. And I like watching that video every now and then, just because it's like, you can see in the match, towards the end of the match, I lost by 2 points. But at the end of the match, I was nodding my head. And in that moment, it was that very moment, I was like, man, it's a good feeling kicking this boy's ass. I was like, I like this feeling, dude. I just liked feeling empowered. Growing up, I used to wrestle and fight my brother. Growing up was in a rough neighborhood. I did used to fight a lot, but doing it to a stranger, a boy that was bigger than me, and just like being there neck and neck with him, someone with my same experience, kind of the same weight, but him being a boy, I was just like, man, I really like this. This is empowering. And then just since then, I started competing, I want to say like 2 or 3 times every month.
What's been maybe a challenge to you? And so we always ask this question to the women that we have on the show, because like I get a lot of questions on the internet, and a lot of times and not every woman experiences them, but like a lot of women experience different problems than guys experience, right? We all have problems. Everybody's got their own issues, their own struggles, and they change from person to person. But I find that women tend to have some issues that tend to trend for them a little bit more than, say, the guys do. Has there been anything that's been uniquely difficult to you that you think was caused by being a woman? Or do you think basically that you just kind of had a rough and tumble sort of attitude and you're like, whatever, I'm just going to do this?
So when they underestimate you, like I just find it so disrespectful sometimes, even going up in the ranks as I got as a higher belt, just when you would get guys that would come in either of the same belt level, lower belt level, or even higher belt level, that would just not have that same respect for you as they would for a white belt on the mat. And even if you were a purple belt,
What's an example of that? So you say like they're disrespectful, like, or not respecting you, or not like valuing you the same way that you would value, say, a guy who was the same skill level. Like, is there something that like they did, or is it just sort of an attitude that you sort of pick up towards you, like one of those, because, sometimes it's, you get a vibe from someone and it's like, you can't quite put your finger on what it is, but we all know that it's going on. So
I've experienced all three. So I've experienced like the vibe where I can tell they just like just don't have any type of respect, don't want to train with you, don't even look your way. And I'm kind of like, all right, whatever. I'm just going to stay away from you. I've had one guy, I remember while training with him, it was no-gi. And you can't tell the belt levels in no-gi, but we were rolling and he was kind of like a beginner. I would say he had like a year experience. And at this point I was thinking purple belt or brown belt. And while we're training, he just wouldn't look at me. Like he would just like pull one of these, just not trying and just not looking my way. And then, it got to the point where I got a little upset and I just started cranking shit. I just started like being mean, clubbing him a little. Sure. And then he knew that I was one of the head instructor. I was the head instructor's wife. So at the end of the match, he was like, do you always roll this rude with your newer students? And I'm like, I don't know. Are you always this rude with other female students? And he just looked at me and I'm like, dude, I have more experience on you. I was like, I put more time on these mats than you could even imagine. I was like, have some respect for me and I'll give that back in return. So that happened. And then the other time, it wasn't even disrespectful, man. He's actually one of my best friends now. And he's actually my first black belt now. Sure. But when I first moved to West Palm, the gym that I went to go train at, the first day I got there, everyone was like looking at me, and like my husband at the time, he was my fiance, and he was like, hey, I didn't want to tell you this because I didn't want to freak you out. He said, but there's a bet going on right now. And I was like, what do you mean a bet? And he was like, there's another purple belt here, and he's basically betting $100 that there's no way that you could submit him, like you being a girl. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me, Eric? And he was just like, I didn't want to tell you this because you probably didn't want to show up. I know you. And I'm just like, bro, I'm here to make friends. It's my first day. Right. This is supposed to be my set training place now because I just moved there.
You're not ready to fight on your first day.
Yeah, you know? I'm here to make friends, dude. The first day of school. So, at the end of class, it was me and Zeus. Again, I love him. He's our first black belt now. And I ended up submitting him in like 3 minutes with a triangle. And right after it, he didn't say a word. He left $100, left his belt on the mat, and left.
That's cool. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, it's interesting how that works out. I remember like when I was younger, I would always go hard. And then as I like now as a black belt and all this other stuff, it's like, it's weird. It's like I can always go hard if I need to, but like if I go to a gym or I'm around a new group of people, I always kind of pull it back a little bit, and I'm like, I want to get to kind of know you guys a little bit before we kick it up into that next gear. It's almost like I equate it to like dancing. Like I'm not gonna like dance with a woman and then immediately just try to like grab her butter.
No, 100%.
We got to get to know each other first,
right? Give a little finger before you give the whole hand.
That's
it. I've had some like people that have visited that just come in here and just like bat out of hell. And I'm like, dude, calm down. Like, you don't want to come into my house and steal my milk. All right. I was like, because you don't want to do that, man. I was like, you got to come in here and let me serve you first. Like, relax, But for sure, I've experienced that.
How do you handle like, if somebody comes in, they're a little rough? Like, do you use like the mat enforcer? Do you get like one of your lower belts, or do you like talk to them? Like, because that happens a lot. Sometimes, it could be somebody trying to prove themselves. Yeah. They come to a gym and they see you and they know you're a high level competitor, and they're like, oh, all right, I'm going to show what's up, or I'm going to come in and kind of come after them. Is there something that like, is there an instance where you've kind of had that situation and how to work out?
Yeah, man, there's a lot of politics in jiu-jitsu, so that happens often. But I'm the type to like lead by example. So whenever there is someone that comes in there, and I always tell them, I'm like, you don't let no one come in your house and steal your fridge or milk and cookies. Like, you got to always make sure that you protect your house. So whenever there is a newcomer and I feel that I can just tell they're coming for blood, or, like a target or trying to prove something, I make sure I'm always one of the first ones to go with them when they're fresh. Just because, again, I'm trying to prove a point and impose my will on them when they're fresh, and they can't use that, oh, I'm tired, as an excuse. That's one thing I don't like. So the first person they roll with is this little being right here. And then after that, I'll send my little soldiers, it goes down a line. I'll start with like my lower belt and then moving on up. But I like to make sure that I'm the one that goes with them first when they're fresh. And even after that roll, if they're a little salty about it, they want to go again, I'm like, let's go again, until they don't want to go anymore. And then I'll go ahead and send my little guys in.
You're kind of vetting them. I think you're always feeling them out too, like making sure they're safe or not. Because you're like, you can kind of feel what they're doing. Yeah, and that way, if you do send, like, if you have them train with one of your lower belts, like you make sure that they're not going to start cranking stuff. And I think that's a great idea. You just kind of set the tone for it.
Oh, for sure. And there has been times where I've gone with some guys, that come to cross train, and they're leg lockers. And you would never think, and they try to grab my foot. And I'm like, bro, I'm the last person you want to play footsies with. So like they'll try to grab my foot and crank my stuff. So after that, if I do send my guys, I'm like, watch your feet. Like I'll give them a little hint and stuff, but 100%, I always go at their pace. I feel them out. I tend to give back what they give. So if they start to like go a little crazy, then I'll pick up the pace. If they slow down, I'll back off and slow down. So I try to feel them out and kind of, give the message, set the tone without having to say a word. Just let my jiu-jitsu do the talking and let them read the room,
Why'd you say something about foot locks for you? Is there something?
Oh, just because I love playing leg locks, man. I love playing footsies, and like my feet over the years have just become so limber. It's just crazy. Like my feet crack a lot. So, it's crazy. I
saw this.
Yeah. So it's like both my feet are like disgusting. Like they're so bad. They've been bent before. They've been snapped before. I've gotten so many leg injuries, foot injuries, the most. And as a result, people tug on my feet and they're just looking at me from the other end. Like, does that not fucking hurt you? And I'm just like, try harder. And then I'll go and I'll snatch their stuff up. And I'm like, you want to snatch my stuff? I'm going to snatch yours. So it's like an eye for an eye. But for sure, when it comes to the footsie games, I'm like, bro, I love to like pummel. I love to like, I have I've learned over the years when you're playing leg locks, when to keep fighting for it, when you have to let go, or when you have to readjust, you know? So like I've tend to like read it so that I don't get stuck on just pulling, and then losing position. So footsies is my thing. I like it.
How did your game did your game develop or change, you know, kind of going through the belt ranks? Like, did it depend on maybe your size as you got smaller? Did your game evolve? Did you become more like, you know, did you work more of a mobile game? Did you more, you know, when you were heavier, did you play more of a heavy pressure game? How did your game kind of evolve as you know, you've gone through the belt ranks?
So for sure, when I was a blue belt, I had this bad tendency, and there's like videos of me where you could hear my dad and my coach at the time, like, yelling at me at tournaments, like, open your fucking guard. I would sit there and just play close guard. I would lose a match because I would just sit there so afraid to open my guard. And then it wasn't until I moved in with my husband when I was a purple belt, and I had just turned 18. I had moved out with him, and he was like a leg locker. Everyone knew him as a Triple H. He was in South Florida. He was a purple belt, heel hooking all the black belts and stuff like that. And they known him as the heel hooking hooker. Like, that's the Triple H. So when I got with him, my open guard developed and my leg lock game. So like I had videos of me heel hooking, you know, and doing foot locks and toe holds and Aoki locks and Estima locks, you know, back in 2014, you know, before it even became a hot thing with Gordon Ryan and all those guys. So his instructor was really big on that. He was a black belt under Team Noguera. His name was Wald Blois. So my husband developed his style game. It was a really unorthodox, like a weird style per se, because it was more MMA, but also jiu-jitsu, and it was just awkward. It was an awkward style. But it was nice. Like, you know, now you have like the elevations from butterfly to a honey hole, you know, like he was doing all of that when it wasn't even, he just didn't know what he was doing. You know, it was just from him learning from his instructor, and he kind of passed that on to me. So I started doing a lot of open game and leg locks. And then at purple belt, I had a lot of success with that. And then girls started to catch on, you know, and then I started losing matches because I was dropping back for leg locks, like by points and stuff. So then at brown belt, I started to develop more of a pressure game, like a top game. So I started to develop that. I won worlds really pretty much not pulling on anyone, like just passing guards in the gi. And then by 2016, when I got my black belt, I felt pretty well-rounded. And then I was able to do both. But then for a long time, I was doing a lot of leg locks. I would say from like 2016 to like 2020, I was doing a lot of leg entanglements.
Nice. Now, there's a transition, and you kind of sort of mentioned it there with a close guard, and it's a transition that I think most competitors make at some point, where basically, you know, most competitors when they're younger and they're little less experienced, they tend to be very tight and afraid. Like they don't want to go for stuff because there's that like what if thing going on in their brain. And then eventually you see where someone sort of, it's not, of course they care. Everybody wants to win, but it's almost like they come at people with like sort of a recklessness where they're like, I'm going to come after you and I'm not going to like worry about whether or not I'm going to lose or win. I'm going to come after you, make that the focus. Most competitors that are very aggressive anyway. Was there a period or maybe a point in your career where you felt this transition go from like going into a competition and you're afraid of what's going to happen, you're afraid of losing or whatever, which usually means you're going to not perform as well, and then maybe coming into a place where mentally a switch flipped, or maybe you had a thought about it where you're like, I don't care anymore, let's go after this, and I just want to come after the person rather than like trying to like hang on and squeak out a win or something?
So I'm going to be completely honest with you. That feeling doesn't go away. I get that feeling till today. Like right before a match, I'm like,
before, I'm saying during the match though, because right before a match, we're a head case. Yeah, but do you still have that during the match?
No, it's like once I step on the match and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, bitch, you're already here. It's do or die. And I'm very, like I said, I'm very competitive. I'm like high driven when it comes to being competitive, and just with the mindset my dad instilled in me as a kid, it was always like, my dad was always big on, you're going to get what you worked for. You're going to get what you worked for. So you always have to work hard. So it's like, he was always like, if you're going to go out there, don't go out there half-assed to lose. You're going to go out there to win. So every time I stepped out there beforehand, bro, I don't know if it's just me, but maybe it's because of the nerves. But when I'm warming up before a match, I get out of breath pretty easy. And in my head, I'm just like, am I prepared for this? I'm like, am I in shape, you know? But then once I get on that mat, I'm just like, oh no, you've covered every edge around. You know, you are prepared. You worked hard for this, and you're gonna go get what you earned. You know, you're gonna get what you deserve, what you worked for. So when I go out there, I know I won't ever compete, honestly, unless I know I'm prepared. That's just something in my mindset. I'm not going out there to have fun, even though competing is fun. I want to go out there to win. So it's like every time I go out there, I'm fully confident. Some people might say it's like, you know, being cocky, but I'm just like, man, I just know that if I'm fully prepared and I did everything right, I go out there knowing that I'm going to perform. Win or lose, I'm going out there on my shield. I'm going out there to put on a show. I'm going out there for the finish. Like, that's one thing. I've lost matches before because I go out there to try to finish. And I've lost position because of it. And, you know, points and stuff like that. So
you got to play the game.
I kind of shy more towards the submission only because the points aren't involved. And like, man, I like playing off my back, and I know I can set up a lot of chain attacks from there. So for sure, that once I step on the mat, the doubt, all that stuff is gone. And I'm like head on, tunnel vision, ready to just kill. It's like a mental switch. Like you said, it just turns on. Right when I'm on there, it goes from being like nervous to being like, let's fucking go. Let's do this.
Do you have is there like a moment so far in your jiu-jitsu career that you're most proud of? Something you've achieved or accomplished? Could be, you know, it doesn't have to be competition related. It could just be anything.
Honestly, just for me, just stepping out on that mat every single time is like a big accomplishment for me. Just because I don't have the luxury of a lot of these girls. Like I'm running my own jiu-jitsu program. I'm not just a student. I'm not just a competitor. I'm a trainer, you know, I'm a teacher. I'm also a competitor, but I also work, like I said. I'm like a dog mom, you know, I'm a wife, you know, so it's like I feel like I wear a lot of hats, and I didn't start jiu-jitsu at a young age, which is no excuse, but I'm just like, I don't have the luxury of training full time and being a student. I'm my own student, you know, I'm the black belt, I'm the head instructor in my own place. So it's up to me to sit down and learn new instructionals. Like me and my husband sit down, and if I could show you my book of notes, man, I literally have a binder where I'm watching all these instructionals, and I'm one to take notes because I tend to download, you know, it better. So I'm over here. If you look through my book, I'm like drawing pictures of like the gis and like grips, and just writing down little mental notes and taking down positions, like drawing pictures and stuff. So it's like I have to be my own teacher and my own student all in one. So it's like every time I go out there and I'm able to implement anything new I learned, or just in general competing, it's a big accomplishment for me because I'm setting the example for my guys. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but I mean, as being a woman in jiu-jitsu and where I'm from at right now and in my community, I'm pretty much like a highly respected black belt there. And I have a lot of people that look up to me, not just women, not just girls, but I have guys, you know, like my guys that I train with on a daily. And they're great. They give me such great competition. I mean, I kick their ass and stuff, but they love it, you know? And as a result, like, they respect me and they always look up to me. So just being on competing at higher levels and just being on the one show, being on the Who's Number One, like, that gives them hope. You know, being Fight to Win. Sometimes I've gotten them on that show and they're just like, you know, like, little by little, I like giving back to my guys. And then I'm that little, if they're like, if she could do it, I can do it. And I'm like, of course you can do it, man. You just got to work hard, train hard. Like, you got some people like me that aren't fully invested in jiu-jitsu like that aren't full-time students or competing every month. Like, I'm not as active as I would love to be. I would love to be super active, you know, but I'm not that active because I do have responsibilities. So whenever I do go out there and compete and I do perform, and whether I win or lose, it's just a big accomplishment in itself. I get to represent myself. I get to represent my guys, my team, you know, and anyone that stands behind me, I get to represent them. So it's a big accomplishment.
Do you think that teaching made jiu-jitsu better?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It gave me a deeper understanding because it's easy for you to do a move that works well for you. It's a lot harder when you have a room full of people with different body types, different mentalities. Like, I've had so many guys, especially when it comes to Spider Guard month, I can't do this. I'm not flexible. My legs aren't long enough. And I'm just like, you can do it. And, you know, and I just modify it for them, and to the point where I break it down. And I'll watch different videos just so that I can get bits and pieces from everyone. And then to make it easier for that person. And then when they're able to perform and do the move, they're like, wow, I can do it. And I'm just like, that right there is what drives me. That right there is what fulfills me, you know?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's like something I've always talked about with my guys. It's something all the guys that become coaches, they say the same thing. It's the same thing I experienced when I was a coach, was that I got better because, like you said, you have to I call it. Yeah, it's a kind of a disgusting analogy, but I call it mama birding it, because basically you've got to take these ideas and you got to break them down, and then you got to then give them to the other people, and they have to be digestible, because you can't just be like, yeah, just do this thing that I just did. You have to be able to break it down into simple ideas for them.
It's so crazy you say that, but that's how I explain it with my husband. Like when I was learning a lot from him before I started, literally I would use that word regurgitate. I'm like, he would learn something, go out and do it to all the guys, go back, relearn it, and then regurgitate it to us. Like, and then he's like, oh, you see what I did last week, Wednesday? Like, this is what I learned. I went back, I refined it, and now I'm showing it to you guys. But before he teaches it, he likes to kind of use it in the training room without letting one of us know. Yeah. And I always peep game. I'm always like, what are you doing with that leg? That's something new. Yeah, and he's just like, don't worry about it. I got that new for you. And then he'll go back, watch the video again, and then come back and then teach it to us.
I like doing that same thing. You go use it on everyone, and then when everybody's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'll show you next week."
Yeah,
you know? I'll show you then.
Exactly. You do that. He does that shit. Does that shit all the time. It's annoying.
It's annoying.
Like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing with that grip?
That's why I started watching the instructionals, because at that point I was like, I don't like being a week behind. All right, you gotta be here. I'm your wife. I live with you. You gotta fill me in, okay?
All right. Here's a question for you. Pros and cons of having a significant other that trains jiu-jitsu, that's high level. Obviously, someone that's into the same stuff that you are. You're in the same space. You have that connection. But sometimes it's everywhere. It's at work and it's at home. And so what are some obviously, as you mentioned, some pros. What are some pros and some cons? Some things maybe that's a little bit not ideal for having a significant other that's on the mats all the time and high level training partner.
So I'm going to be honest with you. It's a pro and con in one. Okay. And this is like my only biggest con. And also it's a pro too, but it's my biggest con is that he is just one straightforward mother effer. Like he is one to straight up. I remember there was one year where I was trying to work my half guard and he was like, dude, your half guard sucks. He's like, it's a par at the most, and like, he's just very honest, very straightforward. He's one to keep me on my toes. Like there's been times where I've won like a big tournament and we're all high and like, oh, I want to enjoy this win. He's like, nah, come back down. He's like, because there's still more work to do. You don't stop here. Like you stop when you're dead. Like one little accomplishment, the girls that you just beat are going to train twice as hard just to get back at you. So, he's always kept me level-headed, always brought me back down when my head was getting too big, and just always been brutally honest. Just so, and you need that. You need constructive criticism, because sometimes the people that love you will be the ones that will lie to you. Like, yeah, they'll gas you up and stuff, but he's not one to do that. So it's like, it's a pro and a con, because he hurts my feelings sometimes, it really does. It hurts to hear that. And I'm just like, I'm trying, Eric. And then on top of that too, it's same thing, pro and con. It's like he'll give me advice on the mat, and then I'll get frustrated sometimes. So then I had this tendency, which I'm working on, is if you were to put my instructor Johnny Farias and Eric in the same room, and if Eric were to tell me to move my left leg and hip escape out to that side, I'd look at him and be like, it doesn't work like that. And then if Johnny were to look at me and tell me to do the same thing, I'd be like, yes, professor, hip escape into that left side, So it's like this fine line of trying to find that respect of Coach Babe and just being Babe, So it's like a fine line that I'm working on right now. So I catch myself sometimes. Like, especially these last couple camps. For my last camp for Who's Number One, he was the one that like did all the studying of the footage, that came up with this game plan and was watching me, would sit there in training and just watch me. And while I was rolling, he would, say things to me, and like, I would start getting upset. And he's like, listen, when you're out there, the only voice you're going to hear is me. I don't want you looking at me. I want you to just listen to me. And I'm doing this not because it's good for my health, but because when you're out there and if I say something, it's going to click and you're going to know what I'm talking about. So then it started to make sense. I'm like, okay, I have to just put my pride aside and just listen to you, because you know what you're talking about. I have to trust in you. I have to trust the process and stick to the game plan. So it's a work in progress, but
sure. Well, it's hard in a relationship because, you guys are equal, right? In the relationship, but then you're going into a place where you are then putting yourself as the sort of the student. Student. You're the subservient one in that particular relationship as coach and student, rather than wife and husband. Yep. And that's always hard to do. That's always hard to separate with, okay, now I'm listening to you and I just got to take it even if I don't want to, right?
Yep. And I'm really strong head, bro. I'm not submissive at all.
I gather that from talking with you. I can gather.
Stubborn. Yeah. I get that from my dad. I will say I'm very stubborn. I'm hard-headed, and I'm really like very fucking hell-bent on my way or the highway, and I'm working on it. I'm working on it too. But another pro too, man, is that when we do argue, you know, we never go to bed mad at each other. That's like one of our biggest rules. We never ever do. And over the years, it's gotten to the point where we will curse each other out, and then like 5 minutes later, I'm like, "You want something to eat?" And like, you know, we'll be fine with each other. But when it comes to training, dude, man, there's been times where I've had like my students go like, "Are you guys okay?" You know, like it's like domestic abuse on the mats, but totally legal. But I've even posted some little clips of me and him just fucking bopping each other. Like it's just, and then at the end of it, I'm just like, "Do you remember when we were mad? Like I love you." You know, like
you got it out of your system,
bro. It's a total pro. It's a total pro right there. That. All day. Love that.
What's worse? What's better than that? Like bottling something up and then being resentful to the person and festering on that thing for like years, and all of a sudden it blurts out. It's it's like you argued a little bit or you fight a little bit and get it out. Done.
And it's like in jiu-jitsu, it's it's kind of fair game too, because I can grab onto something, whether it's like if he's crushing me from underneath, you damn right, I'm taking my knuckles and I'm drilling them in his ribcage. Like I'm still gonna do some damage, or I'll start like low-key trying to fish hook him or digging my knuckle into his temple. So I'm like, I can still, it's not like he's really hurting me, but I can still get the upper hand in here too. So it's a pro for sure.
Yeah, cool. So random question, because at some point we're probably going to transition to talking about your upcoming match and some of that stuff. I'm curious about this. This has nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. You said that you got like a little farm going. I don't know if you have any land or not. I've got, I would imagine, being out near Miami, West Palm, it's probably not the cheapest place to live as far as getting acreage. I've got a little bit of acreage myself. We got a horse barn and then all that stuff running around. So if you don't have that yet, do you think at some point you'd like to have like a little bit of land to like have like a little farm going?
100%. So this is where like the little thing comes in. So my boss, his mom is my landlord and he's a vet. The man like is fascinated by chickens. He likes to crossbreed them and stuff like that. I used to clean snakes for him. My landlord is awesome. And I do not live in Loxahatchee or anywhere there was land. I live in the city. And the thing is, I don't have any neighbors to my right side. And I have a neighbor to my left side. And my neighbors, we're like in the neighborhood that we're at, there's a lot of older people. So we're like the cool kids on the block. Okay. They're the younger kids and the cool kids that are outside working them out with their shirts off and stuff. And like all the older people are like, ooh, like, when I was in my day, so I like to give the neighbors eggs and stuff like that. But so I do not have any land. And if you ever like check out my Instagram and I post footage, I literally have like a decent sized backyard, which my husband has transformed into like a food forest. So he started off with raised beds. And at that point, the chickens were jumping over the fence and scratching everything. He just had enough of it. So he just took off all the raised beds and just started planting shit, like edible stuff all over the place. So now it's like literally a food forest. It's just like a bunch of trees, and we have like starfish, moringa, cherries, jambu, waxwood, like apples and stuff like that, papayas, all that good stuff.
That's cool.
So like I definitely do not have any land, but in the future, I want to like hit one of those giant gongs and have like 1,000 chickens flying from my mountain, like I definitely want to farm 100%. Cool. And chickens, lots of them. Lots. Like all my girls, most of them have names. Like my favorite being Cardi B, which was a game chicken. I found her. She's one of the alphas of the flock. And then Brownie, I got her from a friend without me even knowing her name. It used to be Debbie. And then I named her Brownie because she's like light brown. And she's also HBIC, man. She's one of my biggest headaches. So she'll try to jump over the fence or whatever, try to come into the patio. She knows, like I'll say Brownie, and she'll look at me and turn around and then like fly back over and stuff. So it's like she already knows her name. She's one of the head alphas in the flock, and people think I'm crazy because every time like I lose a chicken, like I'll have a funeral, like I'll mourn and stuff. And I'm like, these are my babies, bro. Like I love my girls. I don't eat chicken. I was like, because of them. I'm not gonna cap. I won't eat chicken because I'm like, I have my girls. They're smart. They give back to me. Like I get an egg from each of one of them every day. So it's like right now eggs are not cheap. So
no.
I was like, it's cool to have at least like, 45 eggs sitting on my countertop. I eat about freaking 8 or 10 a day. So
yeah, that's cool. That's chicken. I don't know. Chickens kind of scare me a little bit. I'm like a city person, but I'm like, they're like pecking. I mean, they'll peck and
yeah. I got some that will draw blood. I've seen some of them, man. I remember one time I was opening up the coop and a lizard like ran by. I was like, what the I saw them like tear his little body up, limp in the air. I was like, they're literally T-Rexes. They're like they're little dinosaurs, dude. They're scary. My husband won't touch them when they're on their eggs because they draw blood. They'll peck them. I don't care. I grab them by their little butts and pull them off. They definitely do draw blood. There's some of them that are mean.
Oh man, that's terrifying. That just scares me, man. It just like we were like out at a little Airbnb and there was like chickens all around. And I was just watching them. I was like, they're so weird.
No, that's trippy. Very trippy. I did have a rooster that at the clinic that I worked at. It was me and another Spanish girl that used to take care of him. It was an Americana rooster, so they're really, really big. And he had a big talon. And it was me and the other Spanish girl that would take care of him. And for some reason, he would only attack us. He would never attack my boss or any of the other girls. So I named him Senor Trump. And Senor Trump decided to tear his own Achilles from attacking us so much. So at that point, he couldn't walk. So my boss went and put him in a carrier and gave him to our favorite Chinese store. And they made soup.
Nice.
There you go.
I was like, that was his fate. I didn't have no problem giving him to the Chinese people because I was like, he attacked me for like a year and a half. And at one point, there's a video on YouTube of my boss locking me in the cage with him. And he labeled it Amanda Alequin, world champion, scared of rooster, you know? It's on YouTube. And like, he's literally attacking me and pegging me with his talon. I'm like, get me out of here. Like trying to get out of the locked cage. So yeah, I don't have roosters.
Sounds like a hostile work environment.
It is. Yeah, right? He's crazy. Crazy. Oh, I have videos of him attacking me, of us like training in the middle of the, like just, going at it in the middle of the clinic. It's funny.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna switch gears. We're gonna talk. I want to talk a little bit about your upcoming match. You have a match with Tammi Musumeci, but before that, like as far as we talked about rule sets a little bit, is there a favorite rule set that you kind of feel is the best for jiu-jitsu in general? Maybe the most exciting one, and also maybe what's the best rule set for your game?
For me, I want to say it's submission only, but I think the best one for jiu-jitsu, man, it's hit or miss. It all depends on the athlete because you can have a submission only rule set, and then you get, I hate to say it, but you get an IBJJF like athlete and they're over there playing for points, not really going for the kill, just trying to win off a ref decision. And then you get a good ADCC, rule set, but then you got guys that don't want to pull guard or don't want to wrestle,
Just hand fight for the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like it's hit or miss with that. It all depends on the athlete. For sure, for myself, I would say submission only because that's always what I'm always trying to go for a finish, always. And I will give up position to go for a finish. Always make it exciting. When it comes to the rule set with points involved, it's hit or miss with me. If I can game plan for it and get a good camp going for it and just switch my mindset and, focus on that one rule set, I can make it happen. I can adjust to any rule set, but ideally I like the submission only.
So you and Tammi have gone against each other before.
Yeah.
Right. You had one map mid 2019, something like that. So
2021. Yeah.
21.
Yeah.
So it's been about 2 years. Yeah. Something like that. A year and a half, 2 years. What's your mindset kind of going against someone that you maybe had a tough, because I think it was a decision loss, right?
Yeah,
so what's your mindset kind of going into a match you're going to 1FC, which is 10 minutes submission only, going into that, going against someone that maybe won. I didn't see the match, but like kind of how do you feel going into that in a rematch?
So I feel good about it. So the first time we did our first match, I was just watching it the other day. The first time we went against each other at that who's number one, the match was pretty good. I mean, I think I did a pretty good job. My focus was on controlling the wrong leg, but that was because I was so hell bent on people going for leg locks. I was controlling the top leg, to stop leg locks. She was still able to capitalize and invert because I was not controlling her bottom leg. But I think I did pretty good at shutting down her bolo. It was the second time we went against each other for the consolation rounds that I kind of fucked up. I went for I like doing like crazy stuff. I like jumping into submissions and stuff. And I kind of went for a half-ass jumping like triangle, which landed with my leg coming across her body and her. With Tammi, it's like once she gets that, I used to train with her. And I know that they're very like not robotic, but they're really systematically like downloaded to their bolos. They got like 4 different setups depending on the person's reaction, like a baby bolo, baron bolo, back bolo, like the regular bolo, all that stuff. So I already knew what she wanted, and the moment she got a hold of that leg, I never really felt threatened with submissions with her. Even when she tried to slap some on, it was more so her getting on my back. So the second time when she got a hold of that leg and she started going inverted in me, it was just inevitable. So once she grabbed my back, my biggest concern was, okay, I can't let her establish any type of like hand fighting grip control. So I was establishing that, but she was on my back for 12 minutes. And then finally, when I was able to escape, I came out like a bat out of hell, dude. And I was just going crazy. And she, again, with a good game plan, put me in her closed guard for the ending of the round. And I was just trying to fight it out from there. So I feel like going into this match, I'm coming in with a better mindset, coming in with a better game plan. It's not like I'm doing a tournament preparing for different girls, different games. You know, I'm actually preparing for one person, 10 minutes, and being super tactical. So for my past match, I had to be a little bit stronger because I was lighter in weight, smaller. For this one, I know Tammi has asked for a 115 match before for one championship. I don't know why she didn't get it. I was also signed for 115, and I've been, begging for a 115 match. And finally, I was like, listen, I know the pool is small. If you guys have any girl at 125, I'll just take it. So they gave me her. So, strength and size isn't a big deal with this. I've gone against her before. I know that's, we're pretty up and up there. More so it's methodical, being tactical with her and not just relying on just shutting down her game, but imposing my game and submitting her. Like, my goal is to finish her. And that's what I see it going as. I've been working like 2 or 3 different submissions from my passing and stuff, and even from on bottom. And I one of the 3 are going to come out for sure.
That bonus is enticing too. I think Chatri does a bonus for any finish, which I think we had him on the podcast. He said like 7 out of 10, I believe, of the matches end in submission. So I mean, it's going to be a fun match for sure. Have you done any matches for 1FC before?
No, my match got postponed 4 times. I signed with them last year in July, and my match was postponed 4 times due to my opponent not being ready. I don't even know what that means. But they kind of like had me on the shelf, and again, it's not their fault. They said that they didn't have a big enough pool for that weight class. I've been asking for Danielle Kelly, and even now I've even commented on her page, and I'm like, girl, you want a match? I'll give you myself on a platter. Like, let's do this, So we'll see if that's something in the works for the future. But for sure, I'm looking forward to actually showcase my skills. Like, this is my time, my opportunity to show them, like, kind of be like, wow, why didn't we have this girl on sooner,
Sure.
So this is like a big opportunity for me, not just to beat Tammi and to win the bonus, but to also show them like why I should be with their number 1 girl for matches and stuff. Cause I'll always perform. I'll always go for the finish. I'm pretty, and the champ's always got to be pretty. And, and I'm just ready, man. I'll never say no to a match. I'll go against anyone. Doesn't matter weight, doesn't matter size, doesn't matter, belt, anything, any martial arts. They're going against Sambo girls, like, give me anyone.
And you're charismatic too, so that would be good, right? Like having a good like champion that can actually like talk and keep that thing going. Because I mean, it's just what it is. Sometimes you talk to some jiu-jitsu champions and they live such a like secluded world. They train and that's it. That's all they do. And then like you talk to them and it's like pulling teeth. It's like talking to someone who's slightly like, they're probably socially awkward. It almost reminds me of talking to some of my like, I was a big geek in high school, but I was kind of like in between because I would do all the wrestling and stuff like that. But I had other buddies that were like super straightforward. They never came out of their house, kind of socially awkward. It's like talking to someone like that, but they're just really good at kicking someone's butt, right? They're really good at choking someone.
Yeah, I think one year I said hi to one of the Meow brothers. Like, I walked up to him and like said, hey, you did so great. I swear to you, I feel like that boy was like didn't know, like a girl must have never spoken to him or what. I don't know, but he just totally shelled up on me. And I was like, all right, good match. All right, I'm out of here. Like, okay, I just scared this boy.
We were at a tournament once, I think it was in North Carolina, where one of the Meow brothers was right behind us. And he's like sitting there like on his iPad or something. And I remember at one point, someone did come up and say hey to him. And he was just kind of like, looked at them. And then like goes back like looking back at his iPad, you're like, okay, cool. Like
me too. Like, I went up to him and he was looking at me like I was speaking gibberish. I'm like, you do speak English, right? Or or do you only speak Portuguese? Like, I was like, okay, I just scared this boy. I was like, good match, good job.
I'm gonna go over here now.
Yeah, I was like, okay, so I totally know what you mean about that. But
do they do interviews after? They do interviews after, right? So you're gonna probably thank your chickens or something if you win, right?
For sure, 100%, man, 100%.
You got your speech ready, afterwards?
I don't yet, but for sure, my goal is set. So I've been speaking to the VP, and he knows that I've been kind of like frustrated and been wanting a match and stuff. So he just told me, he was like, just be ready after your win, to make sure you call out any 115er that you want. And I was like, baby, you already know who I want. I was like, so let's do this, So that's my main goal, but for sure I'll work on my, that's a good thing to manifest as well.
Yeah, and tons of exposure. I mean, like it's going to be on Amazon Prime, so it's ONE FC Fight Night 12. It's July the 14th. 10-minute submission only grappling match. And they've the production is incredible. Like it's really awesome. It's going to be a big stage, huge stage, lots of exposure. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. And just how they, them just reaching out to me, like, dude, just the medicals and the blood work and the brain MRIs and everything, like all that, the podcast and the marketing team. And I'm like, I feel like I'm in the UFC. I was like, I can get used to this. I was like, I just can't imagine how it's going to be when I actually get there. I really am not looking forward to the 23 hours of flying. That right now, my back is screaming, hell no. But my mind and my body to experience it is like, yes. And also too, Thailand, man, I'm looking forward to having 5-star meals on the street. Like me and my husband have been going TikTok crazy. Like I said, I'm a foodie and I'm going in there underweight. Like my normal weight is around 118, 119. And that's with me training like 3 times a day, trying to eat as much as I can on creatine. It's just hard to keep the weight up when you're doing so much. But honestly, I'm so excited. I was like, I can't wait to spend $2 and have a full course meal.
That's cool.
I've been to the Philippines before, and it's kind of, I'm not saying it's the same, but it's very inexpensive to get a really good meal there too.
Yeah,
so
excited.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So anything do you have anything else to add? Anything you're looking forward to besides your match?
Honestly, that's about it. I'm looking forward to honestly meeting the whole team that I've been working with and talking to, and everyone that's been setting up these podcasts and reaching out to me. I like to put a face to the names that I've been talking to. Everyone's been so pleasant. And more importantly, I do want to thank, I did make a post asking for people who were interested in sponsoring me for this event, because I get to walk out with a banner and, my gear and stuff. So I do want to thank, the companies that did choose to entrust in me and support me on this journey. So for sure.
And then if people want to follow you, if they want to kind of keep track of you and go watch your match and stuff like that and see what you're up to, what's the best way to do that?
So for sure, I'm really, really active on my Instagram. That's Tubby BJJ. My team back at home, if anyone ever wants to visit me in West Palm Beach, our beaches are really nice. We're not as crowded as Miami. The nightlife is lit, okay? It stays up till 4 a.m. They have really nice clubs, and downtown is beautiful, Rosemary Square. I can give you a little tour of Trump's house, but the People's Jiu-Jitsu on Instagram, if you guys want to give them a follow, you guys can see content there. I like to post a lot of footage, a lot of videos, a lot of techniques of the month. Like I said, I'm a nerd. I like to watch a lot of videos. I like to learn. So if anyone wants to follow or even come visit, I do have some extra rooms at my house. And as long as you're not a creep, I'm willing to let you stay with me and my clan, as long as you like dogs too. I got 5 of them that are whores. So
and what's the name of your gym?
The People's Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay, that's what I saw. I was looking it up. People's Jiu-Jitsu. Where did that name come from?
So me and my friend back in one of my she was training with me at the time. She was a purple belt, and she wanted to do something for the community because at the time I was running a program at Palm Beach Boxing in West Palm, and it's it's a little for environmentally challenged families. It's a lower income area. And she wanted to do something for those kids. She saw that I was running a kids program there of 30 kids. They were all good kids, just coming from rough houses. So she wanted to start a nonprofit. And, she was like, Tubby, I'm not really big on the jiu-jitsu community, but you are. What do you think we should do? So I decided to come up with the name and the logo. And if you look at the logo, it's a bunch of little hands connecting, touching each other, with little jiu-jitsu tape and stuff like that. And I was like, man, we're doing this for the people, I was like, I feel like I'm the people's champ because I have all these guys and all these kids that look up to me. I'm like, so why not become the people's jiu-jitsu, Yeah. So we started that, and that was great. Honestly, we did it for a year and a half. We did some roll-a-thons, they raised some money, they sponsored some kids, and then COVID hit. And then once COVID hit, that kind of put everything to a halt. We weren't able to do anything with it. And I wasn't really in charge of any of the books. I was just kind of the face of it. And then when things started to open back up, she asked me, she was like, hey, do you want to continue with this? The only thing is that I can't be a part of it anymore. And at that point, I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out how to make jiu-jitsu a for-profit business. I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to make it a nonprofit or let alone like get a board for it. And I was like, that's big. A nonprofit is big. You have to find people you trust, people who you can trust with like, the funds and stuff like that. And I'm like, and I'm not so, very, very well educated on the whole business part of it.
Sure.
So I was like, I rather, take the logo and the name and use it for a for-profit gym, but keep the same mission. I'm someone again that helps the people and likes to help, the community and stuff. So I'm like, if I come across someone that wants to train, can't afford it, like I'll still sponsor them. Like it's going to be my program. I will lose nothing. If anything, I'll gain like the goodness knowing that they're training and they're not out there like on the streets and stuff like that. So I decided to keep the name and keep the logo and keep the mission. But now we're a for-profit business, but yeah, we're still keeping the same mission and the same goals, which is to help the community and be there for the people.
That's super cool. Yeah. And you can still run a for-profit business and still have a soul to it where you can help people that need it, that you can still be done, right? It doesn't have to be a cutthroat type of thing when you're running it yourself.
I'm really big on what you give is what you get, man. So like I like to give. I'm a big giver, and especially when it comes to the community and jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, jiu-jitsu is something that's priceless. I know for me, if there was a genie that came up to me and told me if you could choose $100 million or you would have to restart jiu-jitsu again as a white belt, what would you choose? I would be completely honest with you. I would be 100% honest with you. I would not take the money. Just because the journey and what I've learned through jiu-jitsu in these past 13 years, it's priceless. It's made me the person I am. It's made me connect with the people who I know today. And it's like the relationships I've built and established with every single soul that I've encountered and come across. It's beautiful to me, And I was like, that's something money can't buy. It's genuine, it's authentic, it's organic, and I would never give it up and redo it again. I would like to keep it the way it is now.
Yeah, well, your friends, your husband, everything, right?
Yeah, everything. The people I've come across, like life and family and friends are like a tree. You got your roots, you got your trunk, you got your branches and your leaves. And it's like I've had some branches fall off. I've had leaves come and go, like, with season. But at the end of the day, like every single person contributed to the person you see right now.
Sure.
Every person that I've come across. So I thank everyone, good or bad.
Well, cool. Well, Tubby, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us. Good luck on your match. I hope you do really well. I hope the game plan that you guys put together works to the way that you guys planned. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys.
All right, guys. So hopefully you enjoyed that podcast. Hopefully you got something from it. For any of you guys that are curious, on our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu Podcast, Amanda talked about her specific warm-up routine and kind of what she goes through. And listening to it, I think you could also, as a person, could modify it depending on what you want to do. But she shared the warm-up routine that she likes to go through. And if you guys would like to get access to it, that'll be the clip. Basically, every time we do a podcast with a guest, we always take out one actionable tip, one piece of like advice, an actual how to do this thing as much as we can that you can implement tomorrow. We take that clip and that goes into our Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. And again, that library that we built up over the last 5 years or whatever it's been, that thing has a point like that from every single guest that we've had. So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. And also thanks to our sponsors, Charlotte's Web. You can check them out at charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order. If you've never tried CBD, then I encourage you to try them out. Charlotte's Web is a premier product in that field. They are third-party tested. They don't sell junk. They have good stuff. The people that work there are on a mission, just like you hear Tubby talking about having a personal mission. The people that work at Charlotte's Web have a personal mission to support people. If you read up about the company, it has its roots and its origins in a really, what I consider a beautiful place, and they've done really well. And eventually someday when CBD is regulated and a lot of companies go under because they're selling junk, they will be perfectly fine because they're keeping themselves up to a higher standard than even what's required in their field. And again, I encourage people to try it out. If you've never tried it, check them out. And if you've already used CBD, but you want to try some of theirs, use the promo code Jiu-Jitsu20 at checkout and you'll save 20% on Charlotte's Web. Also, thanks to epicworldbjj.com. Again, if you want to check out some of their stuff, I encourage you to try out or take a look at some of their t-shirts. That's where most people, like when they send me messages, people buy a little bit of everything from them. But I get a lot of messages when I wear their t-shirts and videos and different posts and stuff like that. So check them out at epicworldbjj.com. If you find something that strikes your fancy and you would like to wear it or like to buy it and have it for training, use the promo code Chewjitsu for 15% off. Also, thanks to Manscaped for supporting the podcast. As I mentioned earlier, I just used their beard trimmer to really trim down my beard. If you look at me right now, I'm very handsome with my trimmed up beard. And again, it was very woolly just a couple days ago. And again, what's really nice about their beard trimmer, all their products are awesome. They're premium products. But the beard trimmer, which I thought was really handy, is that it's a fixed guard and the actual blade moves up and down. And so as you're going into it, if you want to trim a place shorter, put it down shorter, trim it down. You can always go longer elsewhere. It's a handy little convenient tool to have if for your guy, if you're a guy and has a beard. And again, check out any of their other stuff. I've used almost everything they have, and it all has, you know, my Chewjitsu's 2 thumbs of approval. Check them out at manscaped.com, and the promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order. And last but not least, guys, if you want to join my email newsletter and get my daily email that I send out, you can check it out at my website at jiujitsu.net/join, JOIN. Upon joining, you'll get access to some exclusive ebooks that I give away for free. And then you will be a valued member of the Chew Crew, and you'll get my daily email where I send everything from philosophical ramblings, jiu-jitsu tips and ideas and concepts to follow, as well as books and stuff that I'm reading. And then I also give exclusive offers for products and discounts and things like that I don't give away to anyone else. It's exclusive to the email group. So again, if you want to do that, jiujitsu.net/join. And guys, with that said, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll talk to you next time.